Hello, and welcome to episode 17 of Campers and Vans Getting Coffee. This episode is cool. I have on Chris and Cherie of Technomadia. And this episode has everything to do with getting mobile internet. That's what Chris and Cherie specialize in. They've been on the road since 2006, and they're super techies. They understand this stuff incredibly well, so they're very qualified to be giving this advice on how to get mobile internet when you're on the road. But basically, they met in 2006 after Chris was already on the road traveling in a trailer, and Cherie, they both met online and then ended up getting together. Cherie loved the idea of living on the road, sold her house, and moved in with Chris, and they've been together ever since. And now they have a 35-foot vintage bus conversion and a 47-foot motor yacht that they split their time between now. So they're really doing this like hardcore. But it's great because we talk about, them and their adventures and all that stuff. And then we get into mobile internet and how to get that and all their advice with that kind of stuff. So they wrote a book called The Mobile Internet Handbook. And, we talk about like satellite, cellular, Wi-Fi, all that kind of stuff. And we just give kind of a good basic overview of kind of where to start and everything. And we dig into it a little bit, but, as they'll kind of mention and talk about it, this technology is changing so quick and so much that if we really gave specifics, basically by the time this episode was released, there'd probably be some outdated information. So we didn't want to do that, but we wanted to give you guys a starting point of where to kind of get started with mobile internet if you really don't have any idea. So that's it. Let's get to the episode. And here is Chris and Cherie. Cherie and Chris, how's it going, guys?
Hey, we're doing good.
Awesome. So glad to have you guys on the show. So what's going on? Where are you guys at today?
We are currently in St. Augustine, Florida, aboard our boat, and we are moored right off the Bridge of Lions.
And so we're breaking your format. We're not in a camper or a van, and we're not drinking coffee. So I hope that's okay with you.
Those were the two requirements, and you guys missed both of them.
We failed.
Yeah, so you guys are in a boat right now. You guys have been on the road for a long time now, right?
Since 2006, Chris actually hit the road solo in a very super tiny travel trailer.
Yes.
And then we met online, and I was silly enough to sell my house and move into that little tiny...
Very, very tiny little trailer.
Oh, okay. So Chris, you were already on the road, and then you guys met after that.
Yes.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Interesting. So what did you...
All in that first year.
What was that?
It was all in that first year. It was, I hit the road solo. The last thing I expected when I moved into I thought I was putting any sort of relationships on hold while I was, going to take my life on the road and being a nomad and everything like that. And the last thing I expected was to meet someone like Cherie that first year on the road who was like, that sounds cool. And I'll sell my house and move in with you.
Oh my gosh. Wow. So Cherie, you were just like, you knew that he lived in a trailer or was traveling full time in this trailer from the beginning, or was that like a shock when you found out?
That was our first date.
So we actually met on a Prius forum. We both owned the hybrid cars, and he had posted a farewell essay to his Prius because a Prius couldn't tow a trailer. So he had bought a Jeep Liberty. So he did this beautiful farewell essay
about all the road trips and adventures I'd taken with the Prius to Burning Man, and I used to carry around a powered paraglider in the back of it and go flying, and done all these crazy things with the Prius, but it wouldn't tow my house.
So I saw this posting and just reached out, and that led to multiple months of just casual communication. And and our first date was actually me stealth boondocking with him in San Francisco.
Yeah.
That's so cool. That's such a fun story about how you guys met. That's awesome. So that was in the trailer in 2006. And then, how did it kind of evolve from there? How'd you guys, because now you're in a bus, correct?
We're in we split our time now between a vintage bus conversion and a motor yacht that I do coastal cruising with.
Yeah, so we went through a progression of houses. After that first year living together in a tiny little tab trailer.
And we didn't kill each other.
And the tab did not have a bathroom, did not have air conditioning, did not have a refrigerator, but it had solar power and mobile internet. So it had the most important essentials. But it was very, very basic in a lot of the other ways, and it was very, very tiny. So we decided to have a custom made trailer. We ran across the Oliver travel trailers, and
which is very similar to the Scamp and Casita fiberglass trailers.
We stumbled across this and we're like, wow, this is really amazing quality.
So we went from 16 feet to 17 feet.
Yes.
And that may not sound like much, but this 17-foot trailer gave us a full bathroom. It gave us a dinette and a separate bed and a full kitchen and air conditioning.
And huge water tanks and, so many things. It was like, it felt like a mansion in comparison to the Tab, even though it was still ridiculously small.
So we spent our first 4 years on the road mostly boondocking and being off-grid because both were solar powered and very self-sufficient, and we were kind of really, really, really minimalist back then. Mm-hmm. But we were working remotely. I was a software developer. I was developing code for major hospitals and government organizations. So I was working remotely and having to navigate mobile internet to do all this to join Chris on the road. After about 4 years in the small travel trailers, we were finding that we were wanting longer and longer stays than what we could do on public lands. So we were going to more and more RV parks.
And it feels really awkward in an RV park because one of the things we loved about the small trailer is the outside became our living room. We deploy our computers out on the picnic tables or hammock chairs and stuff like that. And outside was our space. But when you're in a more of an RV park and you're there for a month, outside is you just got other people's windows looking down on you, and you really don't feel like necessarily being outside all the time. And then we're still crammed in this tiny little box trying to both do our work days. And we started dreaming of having more space and dreaming of doing something different. And we actually started researching boats at that time. And
we ended up parking the trailer, and we moved over to the U.S. Virgin Islands for a winter.
Yeah, we got a sublet in the treehouse. It was pretty cool.
So we moved up for 400 square feet in a little treehouse on an island and hung out with the cruising community over there to kind of really feel out if cruising would be our next step. And we decided that sailing and working full time was not compatible. It was just boating is a whole nother level of challenge.
And connectivity would be a lot trickier.
Mm-hmm. So we decided after we returned from the Virgin Islands that we definitely wanted to continue RVing in the U.S., but we wanted to consider our next home base to be a home base that we did other travels from.
And something bigger and cooler.
So that led us to a vintage bus, which is it's a 1961 style highway bus that Greyhound used to run. And we got that in 2011.
Yeah, we actually we sold the Oliver instantly. We actually sold it for more than we paid for it because it was kind of a rare thing, kind of unusual to have an RV go up in value. And we got an Amtrak rail pass because we were literally homeless at this point. We had no RV of any sort. We got backpacks and hopped on Amtrak and went around the country looking at vintage buses for sale. And eventually found the bus we settled on in Yuma, Arizona. It had been sitting on a storage lot for years, but was a gem underneath.
So we spent the next few years. It was already converted, but we did a lot of high-tech upgrades to it, solar, lithium batteries, of course, mobile internet stuff, and built in a dual desk setup. Because at this point, we're both working together and creating things. We did app development. We were helping organizations launch products in the mobile space and doing a lot of tech consulting. So we wanted really comfortable workspaces because our backs were getting really sore working on a dinette and picnic tables. And we ended up in the bus. And then about a year and a half ago, we bought the boat and decided to start our cruising dreams. But we settled on a motor yacht, which is a little less challenging than sailing. So.
Well, in a different intention. Our intention is to do the Great Loop, which requires going under a lot of low bridges. So sailboats and masts are not conducive to the Great Loop.
So
right. Go ahead, Cherie. Did you have something?
I was going to say, so our plan from here on out for the next several years is we'll be spending our winters in our bus, mostly cruising around the desert Southwest. And then until it gets too cold, we're going to be cruising north in the boat. And when it gets too cold, we'll store the boat for winters.
Yeah, so we'll be doing the Great Loop, which is the circumnavigation of the eastern half of the United States of North America. And so we'll be all the way up in Canada and up in the Great Lakes and coming back down and around and taking it very, very slowly. So we got a lot of years of adventurous routes ahead of us.
Wow, that is so cool. It's such a fun plan. I love that. That's awesome. So, so you guys kind of bought the bus to kind of because you said you didn't really enjoy being in RV parks for a long period of time. Was that right?
We didn't like it in the small trailers because it just didn't feel right to be. We didn't like being outside our trailer.
And we were also being in places where the climates were more, more, where we wanted more comfortable space to be indoors. And also our backs were really starting to kill us. We want something a little bit bigger where we could have proper rolling desk chairs was part of the reason we got.
So we wanted the larger space. And my father was diagnosed with cancer around this time. So we actually ended up parking ourselves in Central Florida for a couple of years to help caretake him until he passed away. So it gave us a really comfortable home to be mobile and to be really there for family.
Okay, I see. It makes sense. So it's more of it's just a more comfortable home. There's more space for you guys. It has what you need in it now, right?
Right. Yes. So it's a comfortable house that, if the weather's bad or something like that, it's very comfortable for both of us to be in the house all day long.
Well, although it is actually technically, it's because part of the reason we went with a 1961 bus is we didn't want something huge. Like all modern buses are 45 feet long, and most big Class A RVs are 40 or 45 feet long, or are really kind of chintzy in quality for some of the smaller ones. So when you go back to the 1960s buses, 35 feet was the max highway length, and they were built like tanks. And so even though they're 50 years old, there are some really amazing old buses to be found, and you can then customize them to your heart's content, which was what we've done.
Yeah, cool. So you guys mentioned the customizing. Did you guys when you bought it, was it in good condition, or was there a lot of work that had to be done to it?
Yes.
We wanted something that would be livable from day one because we didn't want to start out with immediately having, because we were homeless. We didn't want it to go and rent an apartment or something while we got the bus ready. So it was livable from day one. The conversion was done in 1989. And so at that point, it was just over 20 years old. And as we all know, RV systems after about 10 or 15 years start to need to replace parts.
Right. So there were we had to do a lot of immediate basics.
Change out the fridge immediately, almost quit.
The tires on it were shredded, so we actually, we managed to drive just a few miles until we had to absolutely get new tires. Just a lot of basics that we really had to get caught up on. But then it was livable, and then we started tackling the bigger upgrades. We actually tackled some of them right away, like the lithium battery system, because the bus had no real house batteries at all. So I dove immediately into building and kind of inventing our own battery setup. That was really cool. We were one of the first RVs to have a very large lithium battery setup, which was fun.
Huh. So how did you guys, I don't know, if it was kind of one of the first RVs to do that, how did you guys kind of learn about that or figure out how to get the battery system in there? Was that just kind of, I don't know, just figuring it out on your own, or did somebody help you with that?
It was odd. Chris had been tracking the lithium batteries for a couple of years, and we were in Arizona with the bus at the time, and we were actually had decided to go to Burning Man that year. And it's like, well, we're going to need batteries if we're going to Burning Man to make it through.
And so I had to do it quickly, and I tracked down an electrical vehicle battery supplier and in Phoenix, and they hadn't really worked with anybody doing a large RV house battery and stuff, but be back and forth with them. I've got an electrical engineering background and stuff. We were able to work out what the design and the circuits and how this should literally build the battery. So we unbolted some of their battery cells that they had configured for electrical vehicles, and they let us borrow a press and
they basically invited us into their warehouse, and they kind of coached us through it, but we did all the work of assembling the pack ourselves.
Basically broke it down to raw cells and assembled a big battery pack out of raw cells, and it was kind of fun.
Wow, that is so cool! Oh my gosh, that's crazy. Yeah. So you guys have
going and mining our own lithium. We didn't go that extreme,
right? Man, so you guys have a super. I don't know, I guess you're very just like techie. You guys understand a lot about technology, huh?
It's kind of why we went with the name Technomadia.
Makes sense, yeah.
So, we both had tech backgrounds when we met. Chris has worked in mobile tech. He worked for Palm, and Palm Pilot is where he worked for out in Silicon Valley. Oh. And I grew up, my dad was a software developer from the 70s. So I grew up programming and was running a business with my father doing software development and consulting. So we both have had, just grew up with technology, and it's something that we're both very comfortable with.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I can definitely tell. That's so cool. Sounds super fun, guys. So I'm curious about the boat too. Are you guys, I don't know, is it like self-sufficient? Do you guys have to, I'm sure you have to dock places. Are there sort of like boat campgrounds where you can, I have no idea how it works. So if you guys could just, I don't know, give me an overview of what maybe a week or a month on the boat looks like.
Well, we still are fairly new to boating, which is part of the excitement and the newness of it all for us. So we can't give the perspective from people who've been on the water for decades, but it is similar to RVing in a lot of ways in that there's both the equivalent of campgrounds, which is staying at marinas where you can have potentially full hookups and everything like that. And then boondocking is anchored out, and there's particularly on the East Coast, there's a lot of opportunities to just find isolated little coves and toss an anchor in, and you're there. You're your own little island.
So on the boat, we have a generator, which we just installed. We're running it right now because we are on a mooring ball, which is basically an anchor that's already placed, and you just hook up to it. So kind of in an RVing perspective, it's kind of like dispersed camping, if you can. There's like designated campsites, but
there's no facilities other than a hook to tie your rope to, basically.
Yeah, it's kind of more like going to a federal campground or something like that.
But I guess one of the major differences is a lot of the places you can go by water and by marina or mooring balls are right in the heart of cool downtown. So right now we're floating off of downtown St. Augustine.
Sorry, go ahead, Cherie.
That's definitely one thing that we're enjoying about boating is it is few and far between that you can actually stay in downtowns in an RV legally.
Without stealth camping, without having to go undercover, which we used to do a lot of, and park right in the middle of downtown.
Not easy in a vintage bus.
Yeah, it's not easy in a vintage bus. A lot easier with a tiny little camper that nobody thought any human beings would be inside of.
But we love to mix it up. I mean, we love to be out in the boonies and away from people, and then we love being in urban city centers and enjoying what city life gives you. So the variety really suits us well.
Yeah, that's nice. I can imagine that's nice to kind of have both. And you guys have this cool land vehicle, and you got this cool boat that you guys can go anywhere with both. It's so cool.
Yes.
So have you met other people kind of living full time on boats that are traveling around and on their boats and stuff?
Oh yes, there's definitely. I would say there are as many as there are RVers, but they're definitely
not as many. Yeah.
There's definitely a lot of them out there, full-time cruisers. People have been doing this for 20, 30 years. What's interesting is in the cruising community is it's much more international. So, you can sail your boat, or some people. Our boat is not a blue water boat. Ours is specifically intercoastal.
A lot in the sailing world. Actually, there's a lot of people who are like, cruising the Caribbean for years on end or sailing around the world and stuff. And
but
we've met several of them.
Our friends Nikki and Jason, Gone with the Winds, they were also full-time RVers who switched to a sailing vessel about 2 years ago. They just sailed over to French Polynesia on their own.
Yes, across the Pacific.
So, you can, boats, if you buy the boat suitable for those sort of crossings, you can have a worldwide adventure, kind of like overlanding in the RV space.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So your boat is not meant to be crossing oceans like that?
No. We specifically bought ours for doing the Great Loop, which is mostly intercoastal waterways, rivers, and
canals.
Lakes. This boat is capable of going to the Bahamas and some of the Caribbean, but it is definitely not designed for high seas or long passages. We only have 440 gallons of fuel on board. That sounds like a lot for an RVer, but for a boat that only gives us 700 miles of range, and there are no fueling stations in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean.
Yes.
That makes sense. So what is kind of the traveling look like for the boat? Are you guys moving around a lot, or you're more just kind of finding spots and parking there for a while and hanging out?
Well, a lot of people do the Great Loop, and they just kind of do it perpetually following the season. So you spend your summer up in Canada and your winter down in Florida, and you're basically always following perfect weather. But you're also always moving, and you're basically moving every day. And we wanted a much slower pace, and we like to go to cool cities, and particularly marinas are a lot cheaper if you're getting weekly or especially monthly rates. So we've given up on the idea of trying to follow the seasons because we have our bus to return to. And instead, we're intentionally doing the Great Loop very, very slowly. So we've done month stays. We're doing a week here in St. Augustine.
And we've done a 3-month stay as well.
Yeah,
so when we find a cool city and a great rate and somewhere we want to be, after 12 years of being in perpetual motion, we're enjoying having some slow time and being able to have some roots and finding community that we can, hang out with the same people more than twice.
Go to the same restaurant a couple times, stuff like that.
Yeah, that's nice when you can kind of relax and enjoy a place a little bit longer than having to just kind of hit all the sites and then get the heck out of there, So I guess you guys are super techies, really. Both have backgrounds in technology. So what does work look like for you guys now? What are you guys doing?
So we started our blog. We were both actually bloggers when we met.
Back 12 years ago. Yes.
So we've both been blogging since about 2002-ish or before.
Before there was a Facebook and stuff.
And we just continued blogging when we hit the road, and we randomly came up with the name Technomadia as we're walking out the door and just sharing about our adventures together. And, a lot of our existing friends knew that we were working on the road. Chris was continuing to do consulting based on mobile.
Silicon Valley consulting stuff.
And I was still running my business remotely. And one of the most common questions people asked us, besides how do you get your mail, was how we stayed connected. How did we get internet access to be able to work remotely? And back in 2006, it was a lot more difficult to get that sort of access to work remotely. So in about 2013, we got tired of answering the same questions over and over again. And we had several blog posts on it. So we actually published a book called The Mobile Internet Handbook that tried to bring together all of our blog posts about mobile internet. And that was our attempt at answering everything in one place, and people could just get the book, and then we could go on about our business. But apparently mobile internet changes very often, and the book needs to be rewritten often. So we experimented in 2014 with finding a way to transition to covering mobile internet for RVers and now cruisers. And we launched an Indiegogo campaign, and it was amazingly supported. And we were able to create a website. It's at mobileinternetinfo.com, where we now have dozens and dozens of guides, and we're constantly tracking mobile internet options, cellular data plans, equipment, antennas, boosters, all that sort of stuff, and reviewing them. And it's all member supported so that we can remain unbiased.
We decided to treat it more like an NPR model where we give away a lot of stuff for free, but we're not beholden to advertisers or sponsors or who wants to give us free stuff or pay to get an article or anything like that. We're beholden to our members. And so the members pay to support us, and then they get extra deeper content on top of the free stuff we give to everyone.
Oh, okay. Makes sense. So that way you guys you're perfectly aligned. There's no bias in your reviews and anything. It keeps it all kosher, I guess.
Right.
Yep.
So we can go through and, honestly, list what are the pros and cons of this particular device, and that people can then evaluate, is that right for me or not?
Yes.
And we're not saying, oh, well, buy this one because we get an affiliate kickback on this one.
Right. In fact, oftentimes a lot of what we do is talking people out of spending money until it's something they really need. Because a lot of people want to rush out and throw money at the internet problem and buy the most expensive booster they can and buy all this and that and all these things, and just hoping that if they spend enough money, they'll always be connected. And it usually doesn't work that way.
Wow, man, this is cool. Yeah, I think you guys are definitely qualified to be providing this information, it seems like. But can you just kind of give us an overview of how it works? Like if somebody's totally new, they're just getting on the road, how they would maybe start researching and looking at info and the different type of equipment they might need to get internet?
Well, the first thing that someone has to consider is that mobile internet is not the same as what you would have like if you're living in a sticks and bricks home.
There'd be just one or two options if you lived in sticks and bricks, and there'd be certain best options for your particular place you lived. Whereas on the road, there is no one particular place.
So every location that you stop at, the best option is what works best at that location. In some places, that might be a Verizon cellular data plan. Sometimes it might be the Wi-Fi at the local McDonald's. Sometimes it might be the Wi-Fi provided by the campground. Rarely is that the one, but it's possible. Sometimes it might be Sprint. And sometimes you might need a booster. Sometimes you might need an antenna.
And it depends how much complexity you want to have, and how much complexity versus simplicity is one of the trade-offs. Costs, how much time, and it all comes down to exactly what are your needs for us. Do you have to be online like we have a lot of people who work 9 to 5 jobs still remotely, and they need to be online for a video call at 9 a.m. every day. And, well, if they're not, they're in trouble. Whereas other people, they've got more control over their schedule. They can take a day off if the connection's not working great, or they can switch to not doing video and stuff like that. So their needs are very, very different than that first person. So
what you'll find for us travelers is that each of us has our unique criteria. Some people are really, maybe they're stock market investors, so they need a really fast connection when they need it. But the rest of the time, they're off playing or exploring or traveling. Others have, 60-hour-a-week jobs. Others are homeschooling. Some they're only interested in, just travel planning, and they only need a few gigabytes of data a month.
And aside from work, there's people's entertainment needs. So a lot of people have switched from over the air or satellite TV to doing all their entertainment via streaming. And so if you're a Netflix addict and you want to watch 10 hours of TV a day, there are ways to do that over cellular or in mobile situations, but that's a whole different level of complexity.
So basically it all starts with you have to assess your needs. Yes. You really have to think through what is essential for you, what is nice to have, and how stir crazy are you going to go if you can't get online today? And that's an important question to ask yourself. And it varies for each of us. And then you have to start looking at what the options are and start considering things like your budget, your technical comfort level. I mean, if you go and just buy a really expensive setup, but it's going to frustrate you managing, and that's no fun. Yeah. So, you decide, weighing simple versus complex. How many people are in your household? Are you doing video, or are you just doing internet surfing?
And are you focused on downloading, or are you doing two-way stuff where you're uploading, like producing YouTube and video content, or doing video two-way video conferences? Because uploading is a different set of demands than just being download focused.
We do have a free overview guide of the options, because the options that most of us settle on is some combination of cellular, using Wi-Fi hotspots like provided at a campground or McDonald's or libraries, and or satellite internet. And we have an overview to all of those options and some of our current top picks. You can find that at mobileinternetinfo.com/overview. And we keep that guide constantly updated as this industry changes.
Okay, perfect. I'll link to that too, so people can get to that easy. Perfect. So I guess cellular I'm familiar with. That's basically like, how your cell phone works and connects to like LTE and stuff, correct?
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and then I know about Wi-Fi. But what is satellite? What is that?
Well, so satellite internet is a lot of people fantasize about it, because the idea of being able to get online from just about anywhere is exciting. And we have actually had a big dish mobile satellite internet system for a while and have used it. But there's a lot of trade-offs.
So basically there are two companies in the U.S. offering mobile satellite options. So a lot of people think, if I just go get a dish TV, with TV satellite, all you're doing is receiving a signal. Internet is two-way. You have to be able to send a signal as well. So it's a different technology. And basically, the two companies are HughesNet and RV Datasat, and both of them have satellites that are orbiting in space and basically providing a signal. It's kind of, think of it like a cell tower that's orbiting space.
Yeah, so a cell tower 26,000 miles away. So it requires tricky antennas.
So you have to set up a huge dish, and they're usually about 3 or 4 feet wide, and aim it precisely at that satellite in space that's 26,000 miles away, and then to receive a signal and send a signal back and forth. And it's a great option for those that are really going out in the boonies away from cellular towers. But there's a lot of trade-offs. I mean, there's setup time, they're expensive. And
then there's high latency. So something like a Skype call like we're doing right now, there'd be a half-second pause between anything we'd be saying back and forth because of the satellite delay and the speed of light. So we'd have to have a very awkward conversation, or we'd constantly be talking over each other. And other sort of two-way interactive things like interacting with a remote terminal is very difficult, if not impossible, over a satellite connection, just because of that speed of light delay. So it gets tricky. There's a lot of interesting, cool stuff happening in the next 5 years with low Earth orbit satellites that will get rid of those delays and can open up interesting broadband options.
So a lot of people are interesting about the SpaceX setups and things like that. That's sort of technology that's coming in the next few years.
So we've got some articles tracking all the upcoming satellite stuff, and there's some really cool stuff coming. But it takes a long time for all this stuff to literally get off the ground.
Yeah. Wow, that's cool. Okay, so is that essentially kind of what, I guess, as of now, as it stands with the current technology, is people sort of use a combination of cellular, but you do have to be near a cell tower for that to work, correct?
Right. And it's gotten a lot easier over the years. You'd be surprised at the number of locations that you can go where you're going to be able to get a very usable cellular signal, especially on Verizon and AT&T right now. They have a lot of coverage outside of urban areas. So those two carriers, if you're traveling out into the boonies, you're going to have the best luck of getting a signal with.
Particularly if you keep both of them on board so that you can play off the strengths and weaknesses of each of them and switch between Verizon or AT&T, depending on which is better where you happen to be.
And T-Mobile is one to watch. They bought a whole bunch of long-range spectrum last year, which is going to help them expand their coverage into more rural areas over the coming years.
Yeah.
Okay. What is long-range spectrum?
The lower the frequency of the cellular signals, the further it travels. And up until now, Verizon and AT&T basically had a monopoly on the longest range cell spectrum. So T-Mobile is now finally, at a technical level, able to build a network that can start to match AT&T and Verizon in rural areas, not just in urban areas where there's towers close by, but in areas where the towers are further spread apart.
Oh, okay. Interesting.
Right.
Sorry, go ahead.
Because when you're on a long-range frequency, you can be 15, 20, even 25 miles from the tower and still get a usable signal just because of how far that signal can travel.
Right.
But when you're in an urban area and you're on the higher frequency bands, those signals may only be able to travel maybe a half mile to 2 miles.
Okay, I see.
Right.
Wow.
And that all, you don't really have to think about it too much because that all happens behind the scenes inside your phone or inside the modem. But it's part of the understanding the technical reasons why Verizon and AT&T had a big advantage for so long, and that's starting to slip away or become more of a balanced playing field nationwide now with 3 nationwide cell carriers, with Verizon, AT&T, and T-Mobile all being able to go head-to-head much more effectively.
Mm-hmm.
But see, that's the sort of stuff we track in the background. And then we summarize it into a nice little snippet that says, get AT&T and Verizon and keep an eye on T-Mobile.
Yes.
Yes, that's nice. There's so much, you guys just know so much technical information about all this stuff that it just goes, right over my head. I feel like I'm pretty, I know technology good enough, but not to the level you guys do. This is cool.
So what we try to do is bridge the gap. Is we can speak the geek with those who enjoy that. We can go to those depths, but we try to also provide a lot of resources that are more at human language and trying to explain it while still being technically accurate and pushing people to understand a little bit more, but also so that they can get information that they need without overwhelming themselves.
Or just summarizing for them, saying, here, get this and this, and this is a really great deal on this plan, and it's expiring in a few weeks. Jump on this now. Trying to give people those really quick, clear guidance sometimes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, letting them know what's up and what to get. So we talked about cellular, Wi-Fi, and satellite. Are there any other options as of now, or is that really the 3 kind of most viable ways to get online?
Those are the mobile options. Those are the ones that you're going to be able to move with without having to contact someone to reset things up. But there are other options and ways to think around internet access on the road. And
we actually have a whole guide to thinking outside the box on wheels, and of just other ways to get your work done and still be connected without necessarily relying on the core 3.
Such as there are RV parks that cater to more seasonal folks or people who stay longer term, where they actually have cable run to each site, and you can subscribe to cable internet just like you did at home. and get a high-speed unlimited connection. They're not at every RV park. You have to seek them out, but that is an option. And you're probably not going to want to do that unless you're staying somewhere for a couple months at a time.
Yeah.
There's, of course, there's wireless internet service providers, which are basically in areas where they haven't run cable or DSL. They have microwave towers that send out a wireless signal. And if you're there for a while, you can subscribe to that as well.
Yeah, and there's actually co-working spaces that have become very popular and have popped up even in some relatively small towns. And if you find them, you basically can go and rent a desk for a day or a week or however long you need it. And then the desk, the main thing it comes with is very, very fast internet and usually free coffee. So you go in, and if you've got a big work project, and we know people who particularly are multiple people living in an RV, and somebody's got a work project and they don't want to be on top of living in that tiny space, and they just got to get through a project for a week, they'll go rent a desk at a co-working space nearby and go to the office for a week.
There you go. Yeah, if you just kind of can, I guess being on the road and being mobile, you just kind of have to plan for this a little bit more, maybe where if you do have something where you need internet and you need to be connected, just kind of plan for that and be in a spot where you can get cellular or get on Wi-Fi or get whatever you need, right?
Absolutely. And use the resources that are out there. A lot of the campground review sites, internet has become so important for so many of us that is something that people leave in their reviews. Campendium in particular actually has a spot where you can leave the signal strength for each of the carriers. So these are great resources for doing some research in advance before you get there, so is my AT&T going to work or not? And we actually wrote a mobile app called Coverage, which takes the carrier's coverage maps, and then you have them on your smartphone or tablet, and you can use that to help research to know if your carriers have coverage.
Yep.
Where or they claim to have coverage where you're going.
Wow, cool. So that just takes like their coverage maps and then just puts it into like a mobile format that's easy to see and stuff?
Absolutely.
Yeah, and
then
easy to compare.
And you can overlay them. So like if you're carrying AT&T and Verizon, you can bring up both coverage maps at once and be able to do your research. And then you can also turn off like roaming and 2G and 3G speeds if you just want the fast LTE coverage. Yeah. So that it's a planning tool that can help folks.
Whoa, cool. So that's on the App Store?
Yep, yeah. It's available for iOS and Android.
Perfect. And what was the name of it again?
Coverage with a question mark.
Coverage with a question mark. Perfect.
Yes.
Well, that's cool. So you guys built that.
Yep.
We did. We got actually frustrated one day because we were camped in a beautiful sea of wildflowers up in the Rockies and thought we had coverage we had Sprint and AT&T at the time, and then both carriers texted us later that day saying you've exceeded your roaming limits, you're in a roaming area, and you have no more data for the month. And we had to actually pack up this amazing, beautiful remote campsite and go find someplace we can get online. And we're like, if we had only had a way to see this map in our pocket and know that we were in a roaming area and didn't have real coverage.
We were actually on our way to San Francisco to attend a developer meetup where the goal was to it was a hackathon, and we were supposed to be spending the weekend building an app. And so we used that idea. This is back in 2010, and we actually wrote the initial beta of the app.
At that weekend, yeah.
Over that weekend, they allowed us to camp in their parking lot. This is at eBay's facilities. So we actually camped in eBay's parking lot for the weekend.
Yeah, eBay hosted the conference. It was fun.
We built the prototype of the app there, and we actually won the hackathon as best idea. So, so we spent the next 6 months actually developing it, and it's been on the market now for 8 years.
Yeah.
And it's mostly selfish that we keep it going because we use it.
Oh my gosh, that's awesome. That's such a cool story. So the maps are provided by like the service providers, right? So are they pretty reliable? Are they accurate with their coverage maps?
So, I mean, they're accurate based upon what they project the signal can reach. And there's so many things that can impact signal: terrain, weather, tower load, your own device, and its ability to connect to the carrier's frequency bands.
So the way we kind of use it is if their maps say there's no coverage, there probably isn't, and we shouldn't even stress about it. But if their maps say there is coverage, it might not necessarily be great. But it probably means that it's in the area, and using our boosters and antennas and gear, we can almost always find a way to make something workable out of it. So it kind of gives us that, is it worth putting effort into improving the signal or not?
And a lot of people, and you also have to keep in mind the carrier's coverage maps are also part marketing. So they're going to be somewhat optimistic when they're showing the potential coverage that's at an area. But oftentimes we'll find people will get to this place and say, hey, the coverage app showed I should have coverage and I didn't. And then we ask them, well, what device are you using? It's like, oh, I'm using an iPhone 4. Like, yes. Well, your iPhone 4 has a very old modem and it can't even see the frequency bands that your carrier is broadcasting in that area. So you have to, if you have modern equipment and you have signal enhancing gear, usually we find that 98% of the time we can actually get usable coverage where the carriers claim we can.
I guess one of the bigger challenges is the maps will say where you can get coverage outside, and coverage has a hard time penetrating into walls of RVs, particularly anything with metal walls like an Airstream or a vintage bus or something like that, or a van, or anything that's got metal walls is a huge block to signal. So people can get a great signal outside if they're standing on top of their RV in particular, and that's where a booster or an antenna can come into play. Is it'll bring that great signal from outside and let you still have that good signal inside.
Oh, okay. So you guys have mentioned a booster a couple of times. What is that, and how does that work?
So a cellular booster, number one, you have a donor antenna, which is an antenna you basically put outside, and it's the antenna that is picking up signal from the tower of your carrier. That then is connected by a wire to a box that is called an amplifier, and that box electronically enhances that signal. And then there's another antenna that goes inside of your RV, and that the amplifier then retransmits the signal through that antenna wirelessly. So you basically have it's kind of like if you brought the cell tower inside your RV. And usually they can boost the signal some. You have to have signal around for it to do anything with it. Can't create signal out of nothing, but it can definitely improve the signal. Now, if it will actually improve your data performance, which is what we're interested in as far as mobile internet, that's questionable, and it goes into some really deep stuff in understanding how LTE technology works. But boosters do definitely have a place, especially in remote locations.
And
Sorry, go ahead, Chris.
I was just going to say, and one of the things that we always try to guide people on is oftentimes they don't really need a booster. And another thing is people spend $600 on a booster. They think they should leave it turned on all the time. And actually, in a lot of places, a booster will slow you down. It's a tool that is best used when you need it as opposed to all the time, because when you need it, it can be great. When you're not, it can actually just be slowing you down and making the signal noisier.
And if anyone's interested in learning more about boosters and the options on the market, our guide to that is at mobileinternetinfo.com/boosters.
Yep. And we explain how they work.
We have a video on them, and we list all the current options that are out there, and we have extensive head-to-head field testing time with all the current models on the market.
Wow, perfect. You guys have so much info. So, yeah, I mean, basically it just seems like the overall is just kind of figure out what sort of, I don't know, how you're going to be using your internet and kind of what you need. And then, I guess the main three, like you said, are cellular, Wi-Fi, and satellite, and just kind of learn about that. But then just heading to your site for all the actual equipment and products and different services and stuff is probably the best way to go, because there's so much stuff and it's always changing, like you said, right?
Always changing.
Absolutely. When we started the site 4 years ago, if someone had told us how much work it would be to keep on top of all this, we might not have done it. But thankfully, because we have been community supported, we now have over 900 guides online, which is a lot of content. Covering all the individual different pieces of equipment, cellular data plans, and then just overview guides. Like we have one on, tips for working remotely over mobile internet. We've got one for TV and movie streaming. We've got one for homeschooling. We have one for gaming over mobile internet. But we couldn't have done all of this on our own. I didn't write 900 pages. We actually have we have a team of writers now that are all paid, and thanks to our community that also help us build the site, which is amazing.
Very cool. That's awesome. So I'm curious too about, I don't know if this is kind of a real question you can get specific on, but how often a person would expect or might need to kind of replace or update their equipment for getting mobile internet. Is that something that needs to be kind of changed a lot because the technology is always changing?
The technology is always changing, but particularly if when you do make an investment in something, you do your little bit of homework to buy something that is I guess, on the leading edge of the technology curve, is a bit more future-proof. So if you basically get a step ahead of the cell carriers, buy the latest and greatest gear, 2 years from now, the cell towers are still just being upgraded to take advantage of that gear. So you've gotten a good, every 2 years is a reasonable pace.
So, there's some equipment that doesn't change too often, like cellular boosters. Those are usually going to be good for several years because there's just not a lot of advancements, and there's a lot of FCC certifications that go around with that. Modems, so the things that are in your smartphone or in your mobile hotspot device, or if you go with a cellular embedded router, those are the things that get updated very often. Yeah. And those are the ones that you're going to get the most bang for your buck keeping updated. And we personally update ours about annually, but most people don't. If you reassess everything about every 2 years, you're probably doing good.
And it all comes down to just paying attention to what would be the bang for your buck for your particular carrier. So like we mentioned, the T-Mobile having all this new long-range spectrum. As of just as recently as January, there were only 3 phones on the T-Mobile that existed in the world that could take advantage of that new spectrum that T-Mobile rolled out. Now they're up to about a dozen, but most phones, most devices, and particularly anything that was designed more than just a few months ago, will not support this new spectrum. So if you're a T-Mobile customer, particularly you want to travel in the rural areas, you'll get a lot of bang for your buck by investing and upgrading to something that supports T-Mobile's LTE band 71, their new stuff. But if you're on a different carrier, that doesn't matter at all in that case, that compatibility.
So, that's the stuff we go deep in is like, okay, these are the things to watch out for in each of the carriers. And, when you're shopping for a device, keep these things in mind. And when you should consider an upgrade. And of course, we're all interested in 5G is the next evolution of cellular technology. But for most of us travelers, that's not going to impact us for several years, just because it's initially going to be very urban based upon the high frequency bands that it's going to be over.
Right.
Oh, okay.
So rushing out, it'd actually be a negative to rush out and buy the first generation of 5G phones, because they'll probably have sacrificed battery life, they'll be big and they'll be clunky and have a lot of trade-offs just because they're trying to be the first to market to have 5G. And maybe if you're in downtown New York or San Francisco, you'll be able to get a ridiculously amazing speed test and just brag to your friends for a little bit. But that doesn't really matter for everyday use. If you get fast enough speeds for everything you're possibly humanly doing, then it doesn't matter that you can go faster. And you've got a clunky phone that's going to be obsolete. So wait for the second generation of 5G hardware.
And for most of us travelers, unless you're sticking to the large cities, most of us are going to still be relying on LTE for the next 2 or 3 years.
Yeah.
So.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that makes sense. It takes a while for all that stuff to get through and updated with all the carriers and stuff, huh?
I wouldn't. For most people, I wouldn't even stress thinking about 5G until 2020. But of course, we'll be tracking it. We've just put out a guide on like what to expect and what's coming. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Makes sense. Cool. And that's all on your website, correct?
Yes. Oh yeah.
Cool. Awesome. So we'll have all that. I'll have all that linked to there so people can get to that. And then also, I was just curious about satellite. So what is there some big piece of equipment that you have to have on like your RV or something to use satellite internet?
Yes, you need a 4-foot wide, huge antenna dish. Yeah. That if you're traveling in a very small RV, it's going to be very difficult to store. Even difficult to store for those in large RVs. One of the satellite companies does have a roof-mounted option, so it's going to go on your roof. But if you're going off grid enough a lot, you probably have solar up there too that's fighting for your roof space.
Yes. And now there are next generation satellite antennas being designed that aren't dishes, that are big flat like pizza boxes or like supersized pizza boxes. So they're still fairly big, but at least they're not quite so cumbersome on a roof. Mm-hmm. But right now that technology, the antennas are $10,000, $20,000 for that type of basically military grade antenna technology. But in 2 or 3 years, that the whole intention is that they're trying to ramp that up for mass production and miniaturization, and satellites in 3 to 5 years from now are going to be a whole new ball game than what's available right now, and there'll be a lot of interesting new tech.
Okay, that's exciting. That's cool, because now it seems like it's kind of out of the reach for a lot of people with it being so big and so expensive. But as technologies are coming along, it could be in more people's wheelhouse to get that. That's cool.
Yep, definitely.
Definitely something to keep an eye on, and something we're tracking. In fact, we were up this morning, about 12:30 this morning, trying to watch a rocket launch from the Space Center of another satellite going to orbit.
Yes.
Oh man, that's cool. So is the you said there's 2 satellite companies. Do they actually they own the satellites and put them up into orbit and stuff themselves?
So
HughesNet is one of them. They have the new Generation 5 satellites that they just brought online April of last year. And that one you can get about 15 megabit per second down speeds, which is phenomenal speeds for satellite. And that one is on a tripod dish. And yes, they do own the satellite network. RV Dataset, that was with Inmarsat, right?
Yeah, no, not Inmarsat, but that is, iDirect iDirect. They're basically leasing satellite time from a satellite that's catering more to enterprise deployments in the oil field and stuff like that. So they have a relatively limited plans, and they're the one that has support for the auto roof mounted aiming thing. So you still have to have a lot of roof space to dedicate to this big dish on the roof, but you don't have to manually sit out and aim a tripod. You just press a button and wait 5 minutes.
Yeah. Man, it's crazy stuff. This is cool. So I guess, I don't know, the moral of the story, I think, is that I think we got a good overview. I understand this stuff a lot more just from talking to you guys about this for sure. But yeah, when you're really ready to start doing this and buy some equipment, head over to rvmobileinternet.com and check out all your stuff that you guys have.
Yeah, and actually, just particularly from the van dweller side of things on satellite, one other thing to consider is a satellite messenger, and this is for safety purposes and basic communications. You're not going to get an internet access, but something like a Garmin InReach will give you coverage anywhere in the world, and you'll be able to get two-way text messaging and distress signal send outs.
Weather updates.
And weather updates.
Which is going to be really important as well.
So for people who are going out in the boonies that way, we consider it a really great safety and basic communication.
It's a little handheld device, a little bit larger than a smartphone.
Yeah, no dish to aim.
They go for about $300 or $400 up front to buy, and then the subscription, I think they have options as low as like $15 a month, and you can scale it up as needed if you need a lot of text messaging if you're going out in the boonies for quite a while.
And it will let you have people you designate. You can track your location and track your trip log online and see your little dots on and text you. And so we consider it a great way for people to get emergency messages to us or emergency messages out.
And we use it with our staff if we know we're going to be off grid for a while, is we tell them they have permission to text us if something big is breaking. Verizon announces a new unlimited plan or something like that. And that gives them the ability to say, hey guys, go find coverage now so that you can come in and take care of this.
Yes.
Wow, that's cool. So what was that called again?
A Garmin InReach is probably the best known product in that category. There's also the Spot Messenger.
Mm-hmm.
Are the kind of the two big ones.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. When you go to our website, there's a link at the top that says gear, and that goes to our gear center. And on there, we have all of the gear that we're tracking categorized by mobile hotspots, cellular data plans, and we have one for satellite. And if you click on the satellite one, you'll see all of the devices that we're tracking, the Garmin InReach, the Spots, and there's some other ones that have just recently come out.
Yeah. Satellite messengers are pretty cool.
Yeah, that is cool. So they're pretty small devices.
Yeah, they're about the size of a smartphone.
Smartphone or walkie-talkie, and
man, that's sweet. Is it I'm wondering if because that seems great for for the safety of it, like you guys said. Does it need to be sort of plugged into power all the time, or could a backpacker take that with them?
No, yeah, they actually really cater to the backpacking market. I think it's got about a 24-hour battery life, which is phenomenal, and you can easily charge it off a little USB solar charger and stuff. So, yeah, that's been kind of their core market is, people who are cruising out into blue water or people who are hiking up in the mountains and stuff like that. And they've got untold stories of mountain climbers who've been saved by getting out a satellite message. Yeah,
I can imagine. That would make me feel a lot better just having that with me, going out in the boonies and stuff for sure.
It's a great peace of mind. And especially, if you've got loved ones that maybe you're dealing with a health issue and you're on edge waiting for an update, but you want to go out in the boonies and relax while you're waiting for that sort of stress. It's a great way for someone to get a message to you like, okay, it's time to come back to reality.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Both ways for it too, to get a message or send a message, Yeah.
Absolutely. Yep.
Yeah. Very cool. Well, this is awesome. You guys are so fun to talk to, how you just know everything about everything. It's just so fun. And you guys are watching the satellites be launched into space. It's cool. You guys are so into it.
We're geeks.
Wow. So I don't know. I guess I'm curious. Like, what is you guys have been on the road since 2006. What does like the future kind of look like for you guys? Are you guys are in your boat and doing the what is it? The Great Circle?
Great Loop.
The Great Loop.
Yes. So I mean, that's just on the horizon for the next stuff, right?
Yeah, so we're going to be taking it slow. We started in Fort Myers, Florida last March. So we've been at it, about 16 months now, and we've made it 700 miles. So we're going really slow.
Yes. But we're getting a chance to explore all these coastal towns and cities in Florida so far. And
the Great Loop is about 6,000 miles in total, and there's a lot of side trips off of it. So we really want to take advantage of doing the side trips. Like this summer, instead of trying to scoot up the coast during hurricane season, we'll actually soon be going inland of Florida down the St. Johns River and be a little more protected for hurricane season.
It's basically you make a left at Jacksonville and you can cruise inland all the way almost to Orlando through a really scenic little river with alligators and bubbling up springs to go swim in and manatees.
Wait a minute. We're going to be swimming in springs with alligators?
Yes, we'll be swimming. We'll actually be able to water ski on the alligators.
This might not. Okay.
So it should be an absolutely fascinating trip back into old rural Florida, going up the river. So.
And that's not officially part of the loop, but it's one of the side trips, and we decided we're going to take the time to do it now because the pace we're going, it could be 10 years before we're back this way. But when we're intending to continue RVing during our winters. We actually just bought an RV lot at the Escapees Saguaro Park in Benson, Arizona, which is a co-op park.
And that'll be our boss's basically storage pad and home base. And then we'll be spending our winters out boondocking and exploring the desert Southwest, which we love. And this winter we're planning to be at the Escapers annual bash and New Year's Eve party out there in the desert.
Because that's one of our other proud moments is we got to help the Escapees RV Club launch the Escapers group, which is aimed at more adventurous RVers and working age RVers. So they have convergences all over the country that are more designed around people that are working or homeschooling so that they're not jam-packed with activities all the time. So people have time for life and for being amongst community.
Yep.
So.
Wow, man, this is cool. Yeah, you guys are so involved with all this stuff. It's awesome. Sounds super fun.
We're thrilled that we've had the opportunity to, we just happened to start RVing earlier, I guess. And, when we hit the road back in 2006, it was really rare to find anybody under age 60 on the road, unless they were vacationing.
Right.
And now it's just amazing to see how many are on the road and
great community out there.
Either able to retire early or working remotely or work camping or just finding ways to minimize expenses so that work's not a concern. It's just been amazing how many people are now able to do this at any age of life and stage of life.
Yeah, for sure. And I think definitely the internet has caused a lot of that and it has allowed it. And you guys are the ones who are kind of the experts at allowing people to kind of bring their jobs on the road with them and be connected, So I think it's cool and it's important what you guys are doing and how you're sharing it with everybody.
And it's our joy to do it. And because we love that we're community funded so that it's a passion project for us. So
yeah. And we were able to basically phase out all of our other consulting and projects. And so this has now become our full-time job. And it's nice to just let this be our focus because it's something that we can see benefits so many other people.
Mm-hmm, for sure. Cool. So, I mean, if someone wants to, find you guys, get connected with you guys and learn all about this stuff, where can they find you guys online?
So anyone who wants to follow our personal travels, we still upkeep our blog, Technomadia.com. And we also have a YouTube channel of the same name.
And that's got the full 12 years, so you can chronicle our entire adventure together.
And that's mostly our travel logs, and we do occasionally put out like we did a guide yesterday to our generator install.
Yeah, so we have that's where all lithium batteries and solar projects are, and anything that's not internet related is there.
It's our fun site.
Yes.
It's what we do in our after hours. And then if you're interested in the mobile internet side of things, that is mobileinternetinfo.com. or it started as rvmobileinternet.com, so that works as well. We're now shifted also helping cruisers and boaters. So there's a bunch of free content there that you're welcome to utilize. As you go deeper and you get into the more nitty-gritty, you will find that it is member exclusive, but we try to keep the basics all for free. We also have a Mobile Internet Resource Center YouTube channel, and that's where we put out a lot of free news articles and guides there. And then we also host the Internet for RVers and Cruisers Facebook group. And so for anyone who has questions about mobile internet and doesn't feel like they need a full membership, that's where you can ask basic questions, and our staff regularly fields questions and helps point you, because 900 pages is a lot to go through. So
it's basically they'll point you in the right direction, and it is completely free, and we take a lot of questions there.
Perfect. That's awesome. And then do you guys still have the that book that you wrote available? Is that updated and stuff, or is it best to just go to the website?
So the book is now part of the website offerings, and you'll see that there's a book page on there. We just issued a updated fifth edition back in February, and we took it back to a shorter book that's focused on the concepts of mobile internet. So it's going over the challenges, an overview of cellular, Wi-Fi, and satellite, but it doesn't have any of the specifics, the stuff that changes all the time. So hopefully we can keep this book around another year or two.
The product recommendations are out because they're on the website now because they change too frequently. But the book is available. If you get it for free with you become a member, or you can get it on Amazon, both print and electronic version. You can get it in iBooks, and you can also download the PDF directly from us.
Cool. Perfect. Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Chris and Cherie. I really appreciate you guys being on and sharing all the info. You guys are so fun to talk to.
Awesome. Well, thanks for inviting us on. It's a lot of fun.
Of course. Well, enjoy the rest of your day, all right?
Okay, take care.
All right, bye. Hey, guys, this is Travis again. Just wanted to touch on a few things. Episode's over, so you can just turn this off and shut it off now, but I had a couple things I wanted to share with you. If you want to listen, if you want to connect with me. Sorry, you might be able to hear my puppy Murphy in the background squeaking on her toy. But just want to share how you guys could connect with us at Campers and Vans Getting Coffee. If you would like, we're on Instagram at Campers and Vans Getting Coffee. We have a website called campersandvansgettingcoffee.com. We're on Facebook at Campers and Vans Getting Coffee, and we're even on Twitter at Campers and Vans Not Getting Coffee. So Twitter is just at Campers and Vans. So if you use Twitter, I'm not really big into Twitter, but you can connect with us there if you want to. That is about it. I just want to say that I appreciate you for listening, and appreciate you being here listening to the end if you are listening to this. And I would really appreciate and love, and it really helps us out if you can leave a review for this podcast. So on Apple Podcasts or wherever you're listening to this on, if you could just drop a rating and a quick review. Doesn't even have to be good. You could just be honest, but any sort of rating review really helps. Super appreciate that. And give me any tips, any thoughts, stuff you think we can improve on, or what you like, or questions that you'd like me to ask, or anything like that, or guests that you'd like to have on the show, anything like that. And you could also send me an email if you want to hello@campersandvansgettingcoffee.com. We have an email address, so you can send it there. So thanks again. Thank you for being here and being a part of this. Super appreciate you. And that's it. Have a good one. Bye.